Do you understand yet? Not quite, but you're getting there. You're homing in. Help me understand what it is about writing the entire paragraph for science that's so hard. You know I'm a slow writer. I start writing, and I can't remember what it was that I was going to say. And then I just get all mad, and I say, forget about the whole thing. Now do you understand? Good job. Well drilled. And you certainly are a whole lot further than you were when it was too hard or too much. By the way, is that a legitimate concern? Want to know what I've learned about kids, both my own two and the thousands I've worked with? Kids have legitimate concerns. There's no reason to be blowing kids' concerns off the table, and yet what are kids expecting? They're expecting to have their concerns blown off the table by adults who have concerns. Now I ask myself, why would you want to do that? Why would we adults want to be in the business of blowing kids' concerns off the table? The answer, we wouldn't want to be. When I ask adults why they are busy blowing kids' concerns off the table, and of course because I observe people doing Plan B almost daily, I often have the opportunity to ask people in so many words, why are you blowing the kids' concern off the table? And here are the two most common responses. I'm not sure what words to use so that I'm not blowing the kids' concerns off the table. Words. People lack the words. But perhaps even more common than that is people saying, I'm scared. What are you scared about? I'm scared that if I put the kid's concern on the table, my concern will get blown off the table. I wonder why there are so many adults in this world who are so scared of having their concerns blown off the table. Just a rhetorical question. We know the answer. History. Practice. Have no fears. Putting the kids' concerns on the table does not mean, as history might have suggested, that your concerns are going to get blown off. But if you blow the kid's concerns off the table and he's challenging, he's going to blow. So I wouldn't do that. A few more tips here. Don't be a genius. Don't be a genius. Many adults, I might have alluded to this earlier, enter Plan B thinking they already know what the kid's concern is. This is an epidemic. Adults entering Plan B thinking they already know what the kid's concern is. It is fine to enter Plan B with some hypotheses about what the kid's concern is. Put them on the shelf. They are hypotheses. You are trying to enter Plan B with a blank mind, an open mind. You want to get the kid's concern on the table. Don't be a genius. A little bit more about the empathy step. Don't rush. What you're doing is you may even be making an appointment with the kid. This is not emergency B. What you want to do is create a 10 to 15 minute space to do some information gathering. And that 10 to 15 minutes also means that you don't have to rush. If it's emergency B, you're probably in a hurry, and there's a major downside to emergency B. Added heat. Added heat that makes it a lot harder to gather information. Added heat that makes it a lot harder to come up with a good solution. That's why proactive B is preferable. But here's the other reason proactive Plan B is preferable. You don't have to rush. You don't leave the empathy step until you feel as certain as you can be that you've got the kid's concern or perspective on the table. That's when you're done with the empathy step, which is why I so often tell people, if you're doing this for the first time, go into your initial Plan B with no agenda other than the empathy step. Keep the define the problem step and the invitation tied behind your back. All you're doing in your first foray into the Plan B territories is gathering information so that you can understand. And be prepared for surprises. You probably don't exactly know what his concern is. That's why you're doing the empathy step. Next step, you now have the kid's concern on the table. Time for your concern. That's going to be accomplished through the define the problem step, but now you know I wish I hadn't called it the define the problem step. I called it the define the problem step because in collaborative problem solving, a problem is defined simply by two concerns that have yet to be reconciled. The kid's and yours. Why is his concern going first? Because if your concern goes first, he thinks you're doing Plan A, because that's what Plan A sounds like. The goal of the define the problem step is to ensure that your concern or perspective is entered into consideration, possibly beginning with more words like, the thing is, or my concern is. What's the hardest part about this ingredient? The hardest part of the empathy step, the information gathering step, is drilling. That's the hardest part of the empathy step. And going into the empathy step with an open mind, without preordained notions about what the kid's concerns are. The hardest part of the define the problem step is that adults often don't know what their concerns are. Adults often know what their solutions are. But now you know that a solution is not a concern. A concern's a concern, a solution's a solution. You're not even talking about solutions until the third ingredient of Plan B. The first two ingredients of Plan B are reserved exclusively for concerns. And yet, here's what so often happens. The kid puts a solution on the table and the adult fails to drill. I'm not doing that. Then the adult joins in the fray and puts a solution on the table themselves. Oh, yes, you are. We don't have two concerns on the table now. We have two solutions on the table now. We are now engaged in something called dueling solutions, also known as a power struggle. Now, a power struggle is a unique type of activity. In a power struggle is a win-lose proposition. In a power struggle, you're trying to figure out who's going to win and who's going to lose. Collaborative problem solving is a win-win proposition. In collaborative problem solving, you're trying to come up with a solution that will work for both parties, that will address the concerns of both parties. But you can't possibly come up with that solution until the concerns of both parties are on the table. That, once again, is why the first two steps of Plan B are reserved for concerns, not solutions. You really don't know what problem you're trying to solve until there's two concerns on the table. Because adults have so much trouble figuring out what their concerns are, I've actually given the matter some thought. And I basically concluded that adult concerns usually can be fit into one of three categories, if you can believe it. All the things that you're concerned about could be fit into one of three categories. Here they are: safety, learning, how the behavior is affecting one's self or others. That's it. So if you're not exactly sure what your concern is, say one of those. What would our concern be on the kid who's doing no homework? Because as we have now learned, the writing part on the science is taking him so long and is so frustrating that he ends up doing nothing. What is our concern about that? Might sound something like this. The thing is, if you don't do any writing for your homework, this is always going to be hard for you because you're never going to get any practice. Legit? Want to know what I've learned about us adults? We have legitimate concerns too. One thing you want to be wary of. Let's say you've put a lot of energy into doing the empathy step well, and you do it well, good for you. And then a lot of adults put a lot of energy into the define the problem step, and they do it well, they get their concern on the table, and then what are they greeted with from the kid? I don't care. The air just went out of the Plan B balloon on that too. Many adults say, he doesn't care about my concern. Wait a second. Maybe he's well practiced at having other people not care about his. You reap what you sow. Plan A begets Plan A. Plan B begets Plan B. One thing I can tell you is that once you start caring about his concern, he'll start caring about yours. All right, we have two concerns on the table. There is no turning back now. Time for the third step. The third ingredient, the invitation, but I should have called it the brainstorming step. The goal of this ingredient is to brainstorm solutions together so as to address the concerns of both parties. This is very hard to do, especially for people who've only been thinking about solutions that work to address their own concerns. Coming up with solutions that address the concerns of both parties takes bravery, effort, and practice. The invitation lets the kid know this is something you're doing with him, not to him. It is crucial to let the kid know you are as invested in getting his concern addressed as you are in getting your own concern addressed. The minute he knows that, you got yourself a problem-solving partner. You got yourself a problem-solving buddy. Y'all are now the problem-solving team. This is not adversarial. This is not enemies. This is two people working together, slogging through mud, so as to come up with solutions that address the concerns of both parties on the unsolved problem that has been causing challenging behavior in this kid for a very, very long time. My attitude, worth the effort, even if you're not very good at it yet. Even if you're not very good at it yet, better than doing something that has absolutely no hope of addressing the concerns of both parties and finally getting this problem solved. I'd rather people do lousy Plan B than well-executed Plan A, because I know that lousy Plan B is just another step on the learning curve on the way to doing well done Plan B. You got to do lousy Plan B before you do Plan B well. So be prepared for lousy. It's in your future if you want to do Plan B. It's hard. All that lousy eventually adds up to experience, and experience ultimately adds up to, you know what, I think I got this. But the first few times you do Plan B, you're probably not going to be saying, I think I got this, unless you get lucky and it's seamless. I had a teacher look at me once and say, when am I going to be good at this? She said, what grade would you give me? She'd only been at this for like 3 weeks. It takes longer than 3 weeks to get good at this usually. She said, what grade would you give me? I said, I don't grade. She said, well, what grade would you give me? I said, well, I wouldn't be grading for proficiency yet. You've only been doing this for 3 weeks. Right now, I would be grading for effort and bravery. Proficiency comes later. You're not going to get to proficiency until you get a high score in the effort and bravery department.